Okay, so I've got all of those memory BGA chips, RAM BGA chips, and these miscellaneous other Broadcom and whatnot BGA chips that were in the lot I bought. I've got them in a couple of beakers here, and I'm going to give them a boil in muriatic acid to get rid of all the little tin balls on the bottom of them, because tin and gold do not get along. And I endeavor to get rid of as much tin as I possibly can before further processing them, just so I don't have quite so many headaches. So got some new muriatic acid here, some HDX, and some of you, if you've been watching my recent videos, have probably been hearing me complain pretty bitterly about the quality of the muriatic acid I've been getting lately. I don't know if it's just the general global supply chain issues or what, but the last batch of muriatic acid I bought was this Chemtech stuff, and it's packaged in milk jugs, for crying out loud. That's one problem, and the second problem was it was a deep dark yellow color, obviously contaminated with something. It's like, I don't want to add contaminants to my gold. I'm trying to get the contaminants out. So fortunately, I've used up all the Chemtech stuff. You know, they sell this 2 gallons to a box in a sealed box, so you can't see what you're getting until after you buy it. So, all right, no more Chemtech. So we got the HDX stuff now, which seems to be a little better. Certainly the packaging is better, and the color is a lot clearer. So let me get the fume hood going. Yeah, look at that. Water white and clear. That's just the way it should be, not deep dark yellow. Okay. Get the lid on them. Get the heat turned on a bit. Not going to boil them too hard. Just basically heat things up so that the reaction takes place a little quicker. I mean, it's already bubbling. I don't know if it's showing up on the video, but it's already bubbling. The acid's already interacting with those tin balls. So I'll just let this go probably at least until tomorrow, since it's I don't know, mid-afternoon already. I'll just let it go, and then maybe tomorrow or whenever we'll decant off this tin sodden liquid, and we'll move on to other processes. Okay, it's only been a couple minutes. This really hasn't even had a chance to warm up yet. But wow, look at the kind of reaction I'm getting in there. That muriatic acid is really going after the tin balls on those BGAs. So I'm just going to let this go the rest of the day and probably leave it on low heat overnight, and we'll see what it looks like in the morning. Whether it needs to cook a little longer or if I think it's done. Alrighty, time to get back to this. Now, it's been, a week or more since I got these out of the goo. It's the holiday season, things are crazy right now, and just haven't had a chance to really deal with them till today. I'd like to get at least 1 or 2 loads of these through the Foundry furnace and incinerated today. Actually, I don't think it'll take more than 2 loads. Ooh, I see gold. Wow. Some of these have gold pads on the back of them. I doubt that's showing up, but that's nice. Seeing gold already. Don't even have them incinerated yet. Alright. So as usual, I'm loading them into the crucible. I'm going to put them in my Foundry furnace. I've got a piece of steel brake line going to the bottom of the crucible to feed oxygen in, so that all the carbon in the chips will get combusted. Alright. Oh, they're still sticky. Sweep these up here. Alright, so let me get this in the Foundry furnace, and we'll get a load, maybe 2 loads through today. Okay, I got the first load of chips in the Foundry furnace. Another reason this project's been on hold is because my poor beat-up Foundry furnace, I've actually been using it for what I actually designed it for originally, which is melting metal. I've been melting my cement copper in here and casting copper bars, and I have a couple of videos about that. I'll put a link in the upper right corner up here. So you can check that out if you like, because it's turned into a fairly interesting project, actually. Finding a good use for the cement copper that I create as a side effect of, or as a waste product of processing all these IC chips. I have a lot of cement copper waste, and here I'm finding something useful to do with it. So that's interesting, and they've been very popular videos because a lot of other people, you know, process e-waste and have a lot of cement copper waste and don't know what to do with it. So those have been pretty popular videos, so check them out if you like. So I got the first load in here ready to go. It's all hooked up as per usual. Got the burner at the bottom, the air line coming in at the top, propane tanks over here. One's almost empty, so I got another one ready to go. Air compressor out of frame. So I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail about this process because I have a lot of other videos about it. Again, I'll put a link in the upper right hand corner right around now if you want to check out a video about the whole process in detail of how I process IC chips. I just want to get these started and get it going before it either gets too late in the day or it starts raining. So let me get this lit and we'll get the first batch going. Okay, here we go. Gonna light her up. Alrighty, put the lid on, keep the heat in, and let me get the chimney and put it on, and we're off. That's gonna take a few minutes to warm up, and then the chips will start burning. Once everything's good and hot in there and it looks like the chips are pyrolyzing good, I'll start the airflow so that we burn off any carbon in the chips and we wind up with just nicely ashed white chips and be able to process them good. And this first propane tank's probably not going to last but a couple of minutes and I'll have to change it out, but I'll be back when something interesting's happening. Okay, we're cooking good now. Yeah, that first propane tank didn't last very long, but it took a little while to heat this up because the chips were still wet. But now we're going. We've got a good fire going on in there. Even got flames licking out the top of the chimney. But we're reburning the exhaust gases in that chimney, so there's almost no smoke, which is a beautiful thing. When you're incinerating IC chips, it can be quite smoky if you don't have the right setup. So just gonna let this go. Once the worst of the flames die down, I'll be able to start the air, and then shortly after that I'll be able to turn off the propane burner, and we'll just let the chips to continue to cook until all of the carbon is burned out of them, and then they slowly cool down to where I can handle them and get another load in. Alright, pretty much most of the volatiles are burned off, and we just got some air blowing in to burn off the carbon in the bottom of the crucible, and once the carbon's done burning, the chips will cool down and I can pull the first batch out and get the next batch in. Okay, the second batch of BGA RAM chips is in the Foundry furnace, cooking away. So here's the remains of the first batch, all nicely ashed up. There's really not much left in here but the dyes and a little bit of white ash, and should be some gold in there somewhere too. Probably won't see it till after I grind them up and do a gravity separation. So after the second batch is done, I'll add them to this. Okay, so here's all of the BGA RAM chips now. Both batches have been through incineration and looks pretty well incinerated to me, so that's good. We'll set that aside. Now, I said I was just going to concentrate on that stuff there, but I'll tell you what, I've got everything set up for incineration. I might be able to get one more batch through today. So I've got these 3 bags here. None of them is big enough alone for one batch, so I think I'm just going to combine them and do them all together. So what do we got in this one? We've got the DDR RAM chips with the trimmed legs. Them in there. sure my airline's down at the bottom. We got the gold corner BGA tops. These will produce a fair amount of gold. We'll get them in here. And then we've got heavy flats, 2 and 4 sided trim. So big flat packs basically, with the legs trimmed, which is nice. And look at that, that just pretty much fills up the crucible. So we will do these next and get them all done at the very least while everything's set up and ready to go. And we will go from there. And that's basically just going to leave this right here. Still need to be processed. These are what's on this label in here. These look like flat packs. Get the label out. Mixed flat ICs, 2 and 4 sided trimmed. Okay. So that'll be sort of a short load in the crucible. We'll see if we can get that through fairly soon. I mean, I'll leave it set up tonight and for the next couple of days, and if I get some more time, I'll run these through too. Alright, the last group of chips is in the foundry furnace. So this little jar held more chips than I thought. They pretty much filled the crucible to overflowing. So I was afraid this would be a short batch, but actually there's a lot of chips in there. So this will be the last batch. So all the chips, well, with the exception of the ones that still had legs on them and the ceramics, you know, the few of those that went, you know, that went a different route, this will be all of the chips from that eBay purchase. All right, all of the chips from that shipment have been incinerated. These are all of the BGA RAM chips here, and this has all of the other chips in it. So I only have so much capacity for working in my little fume hood over here, and only so many big beakers, so I'm not going to try and do this all in one batch. I'm just going to concentrate on the BGA RAM chips for now, then come back and I will do these. So let me get moving on the BGA RAM chips. Over here I've got the blender set up, ready to go. Gonna pulverize them as per usual, just like I've done in so many other videos. Then we'll do a gravity separation, and we'll see how much material is left after that. So let me put some chips in the old blender. My old reliable Hamilton Beach blender that has served me for many years, though it is on its 4th set of blades. I just put a fresh set of blades on it the other day because this does tend to wear them down. I put some water in there. Dust down, nice slurry here. And away we go. Okay, let's see what that did for us. Pretty darn good. Yeah, there's some oversized stuff here, but not near as much as when I'm doing random IC chips, which you'll see when I get to this bucket full of stuff. So these BGAs, this stuff's actually pretty small. But I will do like I normally do, and I will put it back in here for further treatment. See if we can get it even smaller. Small as I can make this stuff will help the acids leach into it and get as much of the base metals out. The first acid treatment with nitric, and then the second acid treatment with Aqua regia will get the gold out. But you got to bust them up small to expose all the gold. Now, speaking of busting it up small, somebody in the comments of one of my recent videos said, you know there's microfine gold in there that you're just not getting because you're not grinding it up fine enough, right? And I'm like, well, I didn't bother answering. But no, there isn't microfine gold in these things. Why would there be? They use, you know, gold bond wires in IC chips, and they gold plate parts of the lead frames on IC chips, and that's about it. Why would they put microfine gold distributed throughout the chip? That makes no sense. Waste of money, which no company would do. So yeah, I don't think there's microfine gold in these things. But you do have to grind the stuff up pretty good to liberate the bond wires. And some of these BGA chips, they do have some gold bonding pads in them, but again, they're not microscopic or anything. I mean, heck, I could see them on the bottom of some of these chips before I incinerated them. So they're not microscopic. A finer grind wouldn't hurt. If there's anybody out there has a spare impact mill they're not using and would like to donate to the cause, I'm your man. But I think this is going to work. Now, aside from the horrible noise the blender makes, there's a little bit of a roar in the background. That's my great big cooling fan blowing on me. It's 6 days before Christmas here in Florida, and it's about 85 degrees. But that's going to change soon. There's a front coming through tomorrow night, and the next few days after that aren't going to get out of the 60s. Still, for those of you watching up north, that probably still sounds like paradise. Eat your hearts out. Seems like some of this stuff just doesn't want to grind up much smaller. Probably going to wind up as usual with an oversized fraction and a fraction that does go through the screen. Oversized. Yeah, I can feel the dust building up on the bottom down there. So we got a good undersized fraction there. Now, a lot of this oversized stuff just looks to me like chunks of the silicon dyes. Yeah. That's pretty much all it is. Chunks of the silicon dyes, I think. They're well broken up. Not as small as I'd like, but I think probably small enough. It's not going to be the gold in the dyes themselves. It's in the bond wires that went to them. The dyes are all broken up. The bond wires are going to be distributed through this stuff, and they're going to be small enough to go through the screen and wind up down there. So, not too worried about it. So we'll just grind this up as well as we can. Anything that won't go through the screen, I'm not going to worry too much about. I'll just mix it in with this after I do a gravity separation and get the really light stuff out of here. Because most of this in here is just going to be really fine ashy stuff, which we need to wash away. Yeah, this looks like really fine stuff. Compared to the oversize I get from your average batch of IC chips. This is much finer. So any gold that's trapped in this, we should get liberation on. And another question I get, or criticism sometimes, is using a flat rate mailbox to do this on. And, well, some people say I'm making the post office go bankrupt. Well, the post office has lots more problems besides me using the occasional flat rate box. But what this does is this lets me catch anything that falls on the bench top really easy. I can just sort of fold it up and shake it right into one of these containers, because this is a very messy process and a lot of this stuff winds up on the bench, and I know there's some gold in it, so I don't want it to go to waste. Anyway, that's why I do that, and I'm just going to keep this up until all of this is through the blender, and then when that's done I'll give you a look at the final result. Alright, all this stuff's been through the blender. Got a minimal amount of oversized stuff. I've run the oversized stuff through the blender on its own several times. I kind of beat the snot out of it, and the volume really isn't reducing much more. And if I look at it, I mean, it just looks like dye debris and little bits of copper. I mean, there might be little bits of gold in there too, but they're probably not going to show up too easy unless I take a loupe to it. But so I'm not too worried about it. I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to mix the oversized stuff in with the rest of it, but it is pretty well beat up. And we'll do gravity separation next and get rid of the bulk of the lightweight ashy stuff in here and just leave the heavier bits. So here's all the stuff from the BGA RAM chips. Let's see if we can reduce the volume a little bit with a gravity separation. Let me get it into this bucket where it's going to be a little easier to handle. Oh, don't want to slop too much of it on the ground. There's gold in this stuff. Okay. So, the idea here is that the lightweight stuff is going to stay in the water column. And the lightweight stuff is just ash. Nothing valuable. Heavier stuff sinks to the bottom and stays there. So we'll do some agitation here and some more water. See if we can pour off some more of this lightweight ashy stuff that we don't want, because it will clog up the filters. When I'm trying to filter this stuff after it goes through Aqua regia, there's no value to this stuff, so it doesn't matter that it's running off out of this bowl down here. Any solids that do make it into this bowl will sink to the bottom, and I will recover them. One thing we're not going to lose much of in this process is gold, because it's 19 times heavier than water. It comes out of the water column real quick, even the fine bond wires do. See, we've reduced the volume quite a bit already. Some better agitation on it there and get some more of the lightweight crud out of it. Just going just a little too easy on it there. Yeah, it doesn't take long for the heavies to drop out. Just want to pour the water off. Stop when the solids get to the lip. Don't pour them out. Getting there. Ideally, you keep doing this until the water comes off clear. In practice, that's difficult to achieve. Yeah, we're not getting much more off now. Water's not super clear, but we have got a lot of the really lightweight stuff out of it. That's pretty clear. I have got a lot of the lightweight stuff out of it. It's going to clog the filters, so that's probably good enough. Let's deal with this, because some material probably did come over that I want to save. We'll do the same thing again. You know, a very small percentage of the material came over from there into here that I want to keep, and a very small percentage of this material will go over here. But the percentages start getting so small, they're not worth worrying about. Okay, we'll call that good. Put this in here. Okay, now the next step, process this stuff with nitric acid to dissolve out the base metals. Well, there's a lot of material here. So this is my big 3-liter beaker. And I'm afraid even it might not be big enough for this. I might have to split this up into several runs, because if I get the stuff too thick on the bottom of the beaker, the acid has difficulty mixing down to the bottom and efficiently contacting everything. But let me see. Let me put some in here and we'll see how it looks. Well, that's probably roughly half of the material. And I think that might be about all I want to process at one time, because that's about an inch thick layer on the bottom. If I go thicker than that, much thicker than that, then the acids won't work very well. So I think we'll do this in 2 batches. Maybe we'll get a little more in, just to make sure I can get it in 2 batches. We'll do a little bit more. And I'll tell you what, the way gold is, probably the second batch will have most of the gold in it, because the gold will be on the bottom of the bucket since it's so heavy. The stuff I'm getting off the top here probably won't have the bulk of the gold in it, but this should have some. Alright, so let me get this in the fume hood and we'll start treating it with nitric acid to dissolve away the base metals. Alrighty, off camera I gave this stuff a couple rinses with distilled water because I did the gravity separation with tap water and I wanted to get the chlorine out of it because we're not ready to make Aqua regia yet. And I'm going to add some distilled water to the beaker. Fair amount. Because we're going to start dissolving the base metals out of this, and the salts that we're going to be creating with after I add nitric acid to it need to have something to dissolve into, so we're going to have some water in there. Let me actually get the heat going before I forget. Not too hot. Just want it warm. We're going to add some nitric acid. We may get an immediate reaction. We'll see. Or not. Okay, we may have to cook this a while, but I'm not going to put any more in just in case the reaction is a little bit delayed. Cover this up. My watch glass is fairly big enough to cover that Mondo 3-liter beaker. And we'll just let this cook for a while and see what happens. I'm sure we will eventually get a reaction. So give it a little bit of a stir. Make sure that acid gets mixed all through the volume here. See some bubbling. We got a little bit of a reaction going on. And the liquid, I think it's my imagination, I think the liquid is turning blue. Yes, the liquid is definitely turning blue. So we've got some kind of reaction going on already and everything's still cold. So it should really pick up once things warm up. So we'll just let it cook for a while. Okay, it has literally been like 3 minutes, alright, since I stirred it. This hasn't even had a chance to get warm yet. We got some pretty good bubbling going on. We got some orange fume production, so this is good. The base metals are going into solution. The water has turned a nice blue, so we're getting some copper in solution. Hopefully there's some silver in here. We'll test that to see if there's any silver in it later. Now this reaction is going to take time. It's late in the day. It's in the afternoon already. So it'll take the rest of today and probably into tomorrow and maybe even into the next day. And I will keep this up until I don't see any more reaction when I add more nitric acid to it. So it'll take multiple additions of acid and probably hours in between, just letting it cook. And when I don't see any more reaction, wow, some pretty vigorous bubbling going on right there. When I don't see any more reaction, I'll call it and decant off the blue liquid and rinse the stuff in the bottom, and then it will be ready for Aqua regia. But that's a ways down the road. And remember, this is just the first half of the first batch. I've got to do the second half of that first batch of BGA RAM chips, and then I've got to do all the other chips that came. And while this is going on, while I'm waiting on this, I will process those other chips just like I processed the BGA RAM chips. So they'll go through the blender, they'll go through the gravity separation, and they'll be sitting waiting for this. Eventually, it'll all get through. Gonna take a while though. I ought to be finding a way to capture the nitrogen dioxide gas being produced by this reaction and converting it back into dilute nitric acid that I can use to dissolve more metal. That's a project that I've got in the back of my mind, but it's a project for another day. Well, it's the next morning. This stuff's been on the heat all night, and I noticed after about my third edition of acid yesterday evening, just before I shut down, that there really wasn't much reaction at all. So it looks like probably, you know, you'll never get all the base metals out, but it looks like the bulk of it is out of this material in here. And probably because there wasn't a lot of base metals. I mean, I was looking at the pulverized debris and I could see a little bit of copper here and there, just little bits, but you know, it's not like the mixed IC chip debris I deal with a lot. There was not near as much base metal in there in these BGA RAM chips, so I think we got the bulk of it. So this blue liquid It's actually, it looks bluer on the viewfinder than it does to my eye. So this is not very saturated with salts yet. And it's probably still got a lot of active nitric acid in it, because like I said, the last addition of acid really didn't do much. So what I'll do is I'll decant off this liquid and set it aside and use it on the second half of this batch of chip debris. So we can absorb some more metal salts into it, dissolve some more base metals. And then I'll give the debris in the bottom a couple of rinses to get the bulk of the blue metal salts out of it, and then we'll go to Aqua regia and see if we can finish processing this batch through. What I need is a really big container that won't be attacked by either nitric acid or Aqua regia to process stuff in. And haven't quite figured out what to use yet. But we'll get this done in several batches, though. I'm not in any big hurry. And this will all be edited together for you, so it's, you know, it's not a month long, even if it takes me a month to do it. Okay, I've decanted this blue liquid off of the IC chip remains in there, and I'm going to test it, see if it's got any silver in it. So what I have here is some tap water. And I normally just use tap water for this test, but I've been getting a lot of people complaining in the comments that I should be adding some hydrochloric acid to it. That'll work better. Well, I find that the tap water works fine to tell me whether there's any significant amount of silver in them in a solution. But just to satisfy the folks, I put a few drops of muriatic acid in here. Let's get some of this in here. And swirl it around, and that's just ever so slightly cloudy. And I'll tell you what, I did the same test off camera with just tap water and got the exact same result. Ever so slightly cloudy. If there's silver in there, it's a very small amount of silver. So probably not enough to worry about, although I will test the liquid again after we do the second batch. Maybe there'll be enough silver in it then to worry about. But right now, there's not much silver there. Okay, so I still need to rinse this a couple times to get the rest of the blue liquid out of it, and then we can go to Aqua regia. Okay, so I'm giving this stuff a rinse, and as I'm swirling it around in the beaker with rinse water, I sure hope that's showing up. See the bands of gold in there on the bottom that have been stirred up by my rinsing the thing? I can't tell on the viewfinder if it's showing up or not, but yeah, wow. There's a fair amount of gold in there. So I'm going to do a couple more rinses on this, and then we'll be ready for Aqua regia. Okay, I've rinsed this a few times, got the blue color out of it. It's time for Aqua regia. Get the blower going. And muriatic acid here. There may be enough left in this jug. I got a couple more jugs in reserve. Enough. And now for some nitric acid. I'm going to put in a fair amount. Here's about 2 milliliters. 4, 6, 8, 10. We'll stop at 10 milliliters and see how that does. I'm not too worried about over nitricing it. What I am a little worried about is making sure that the nitric acid and muriatic acid combination has a chance to get in contact with all the gold in there. Now, another question I get in the comments on my videos a lot is, why am I not using a stir bar? Well, two reasons. number one, I don't have a hot plate that'll turn a stir bar. And number two, this material is very abrasive, and I'm worried that as that's spinning away in there, it's just gonna frost the inside of my beakers really badly, which I don't really want. This material is so abrasive, they wind up getting a little frosted anyway, even without the extra agitation of a stir bar. But what I do find, though, is if I get the heat up just to where there's a very, 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 very light boil, it will agitate the material enough that I don't really need to stir it constantly. The liquid will permeate it in its entirety. So that's the answer to that question that I get asked fairly frequently. So we'll just let this cook now, and we will see what we will see once it warms up a bit. Well, we got a reaction going on. I don't know, it's been a half hour, 45 minutes or so. It's warmed up some. It's a slow reaction, but that's okay. I'm not in a big hurry. You know, every once in a while a bubble will come up and we'll get a little bit of fumes up in here. So it's working. I'm just gonna let it go, you know, and I may let it go all day and even into tomorrow. We'll see. Just want to make sure, there went a bubble. Just want to make sure that all of the gold eventually gets dissolved. And like I said, I'm not in any rush. I got other projects I'm working on. And this can just cook in the background for as long as it needs to. Well, it's kind of an interesting development. I went inside for lunch. I was inside for, I don't know, maybe an hour, hour and a half. I did some other stuff too while I was in there. The liquid has turned dark. Huh. Maybe it's a good sign. I'll have to do a stannous chloride test out of here shortly. We'll see if we're getting gold in solution. I hope so. I've got some stannous chloride test, or some stannous chloride solution cooking on the other hot plate, so it should be about ready to go. We'll give that a test and see what we got. Well, I just did a stannous chloride test on that liquid there, so we've got gold going into solution for sure. It looks a little weak though, so I'm thinking the gold has only just started going into solution. There's probably some other stuff in there that didn't fully dissolve in the nitric acid. Some other metals, maybe some iron, maybe some alumina, maybe a few other things that didn't fully dissolve in the nitric acid boil. So I'm thinking that they probably went into solution first once I hit it with the Aqua regia, and then once they were out of into solution, then the gold could start dissolving, because the gold would be less reactive than those other metals, so it wouldn't go in first. So what also probably happened is those other metals probably chewed up a lot of the nitric acid I put in there to begin with. So I think I'm going to give it another shot of nitric acid, maybe, I don't know, 4 more milliliters, and we'll see what that does. Yeah, so I'm definitely expecting a stronger stannous chloride test than that. That's a little weak. Because from the amount of gold I can see in the bottom of the beaker, so I'm thinking we just need a little bit more nitric acid in here and let it cook a little while longer. There's about 4 more milliliters. Just let that go. And I'll do another stannous chloride test after this has had a chance to cook for a while. Maybe even overnight. We'll see. Okay, got a much more vigorous reaction now after adding some more nitric to it. I have not turned up the heat, but we got a lot more bubbling and boiling going, and we got fumes again. So yeah, it needed more nitric acid. And it's getting on in the afternoon. I got a little bit of a late start on this today. So I will probably leave this sit for the rest of the day. Maybe give it another shot of nitric acid in an hour or two, or when this reaction dies down, and then just let it sit on low heat overnight. And just see if I can get as much of the gold into solution as I can before I try to decant off the liquid and drop the gold. And I'm thinking Even though I've got my Mondo big wide 3-liter beaker here, I'm thinking that it's still too thick on the bottom and it's not getting good contact with the acid. Before I do the next batch, I may try to concentrate it a little bit, concentrate the gold and reduce the amount of other stuff. I may break the sluice out and run the second batch through the sluice. That should concentrate the gold and get rid of a lot of the other stuff. I might do that with the rest of the stuff in the other batches to come too. But yeah, we got a good reaction going now. So I'll let this go for a while doing the stannous chloride test, and I bet it'll be a lot stronger.